What's up, everybody? And today we're checking out Migrants storm US Marines get deported instantly. This is by a channel called Cash Jordan. I'm presuming that's his name. I've not checked out this channel before. It's going to be very interesting to check out. This person's obviously got quite a substantial following. As I've said many times, I am a US citizen, so I've got skin in the game with this, and I have an opinion on it. But I'm also not living in America right now. I'm living in the United Kingdom, my home country. And so it's going to be interesting to watch this with the viewpoint of being in a different country, without really having an opinion on it too much. I mean, we'll get into that, won't we, into the video. But it's going to be interesting to watch it, especially because the dynamic on the border has changed over the past few weeks and months compared to what it was a couple of years ago. So it's going to be really weird watching this from this perspective. Before we get started, obviously link down below to the original video. Please go over to the original video, give it a love, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you do that. Also, down here, you will see the amount that the Kickstarter has raised so far for the next 27 days. We are trying to reach the goal. We're trying to back this Kickstarter. We've got 4,776 people who have backed it so far. I think it's 41 backers. 41 people have founded this company, have helped me develop this. I'm so excited. If you don't know what it is, I've started a Kickstarter for my new business, Parole. This is something I am so passionate about, getting this drink out to the masses. It's a functional drink, 750 milligrams of lion's mane, 750 milligrams of cordyceps, 80 milligrams of caffeine, and a bunch of other stuff. This is the basis of a business that is really going to change people's perspective on the outdoors. We want to get people outdoors, just like Red Bull, where they take the revenue and they sponsor extreme sports. We want to take the revenue from this drink and fund outdoor activities, getting people outside more, getting the next generation outside more with forest schools and stuff like that. I'm so passionate. I'm so passionate. We're going to be doing something very special tomorrow. In fact, let me give a shout out to Alex Jensen, Cecil McCreary, Caleb McFeet, Ryan, Christoph, Andrew Williams, and David Richards for backing the Kickstarter yesterday. Every video, I'm going to be shouting out the people who backed the Kickstarter yesterday. We're going to be doing something very special tomorrow on the live stream at 8 p.m. where if you are a backer of Morale, your name is going to go down in history. All right? You're going to want to be there 8 p.m. tomorrow. Back the Kickstarter, link in the bio. Also, before we get started, check out Chug, 10% off, link down below if you want to put your morale in something really cool. This is literally the best drinking vessel in the world. It's insulated. You can get it customized. It comes with a free bag. This thing is phenomenal. Check it out. 10% off, link down below. Other than that, I think that is it. Let's pull this up. Let's see what's going on. And let's have a chat. Let me remove the Kickstarter thing from here. Let's have a chat what's going on the border. That's really, really loud. Good God, my ears just nearly burst. Let's get subbies on for people.
President Trump's term, some border agents say his executive order on immigration appears to be working. Thousands of migrants are even giving up mid-journey. They're already on their way, and then they're going back home. What does that tell you?
You know, it tells me that as troops flood the U.S. border, something that nobody thought would ever take place is actually happening. America is now seeing reverse migration, as the people we were told fled poverty and oppression without a country to return to are now voluntarily turning around and returning to those very same places.
Well, I mean, it was going to be obvious that if Trump put a bunch of military people on the border, bunch of soldiers on the border, it's going to stop people from coming in. I mean, he's always had a hard stance on the border, hasn't he?
And if all it took were a handful of the world's best trained troops to secure our...
All right. They are some of the best trained troops, but you got to put the British troops up there, guys. Come on. Listen, I'm a US and a UK citizen, but us British military are some of the best as well. So you can't say the world's best. You got to say some of the world's best, all right? I can see the comments absolutely blowing up on that one. Listen, I'm a former Royal Marines commando. If I'm not giving shit to other Marines around the world like the US Marines, if I'm not constantly trying to give them, banter and boost them, then what's the point? Only military. Do you know what? The only people who get hurt and get upset about other military people saying that they're better than other military people are non-military people. Because if there's a US Marine hearing that I'm saying that the Royal Marines are just as good as the US Marines, they'll be giving me banter back. It's the people in the comments who can't take that banter who have never seen service. There, I'm telling you, Come at me. Come at me.
Border, that can only mean it's been kept open all of these years on purpose.
But now the
Has it?
Pentagon is sending up to 3,000 more troops to the southern border. The military might coming as the White House pressures Mexico to ramp up its security efforts on the other side of the wall.
For the first time ever, media was able to get access to a specialized operations group within Border Patrol. It is an elite unit where they work specifically to target the worst of the worst, while also...
So I wonder what this elite unit is. Is it some sort of, like, what branch would it be? What branch would it be? That's a good question.
So working to save lives.
Cartel operatives have reportedly had to move labs to other parts of the country or temporarily stop production. Other cartel members are becoming more afraid of being arrested. One person telling the New York Times, "You can't be calm, you can't even sleep."
Defiant immigration activists are now trying all they can to stop ICE agents. They've been showing up to raids with megaphones and cameras, and now they're trying to dox agents across the Los Angeles area.
You know, obviously, as someone who's been through the US visa process, right, I spent a lot of money on my US citizenship. Not only was the visa expensive, but I had to renew that visa, which was also expensive. I had to get work permits, which were expensive. And then I had to get my citizenship, which was also incredibly expensive. So yes, seeing people just cross the border and living in the country is quite infuriating as someone who's paid that money. Right? I am a US immigrant, but I did it through the right chains. I also want to preface by saying that the refugee status is a very important status, right? The problem with that is that it can easily be abused. If someone's life is in legitimate danger and they're trying to seek refugee, I have no problem with them coming into the country where it can be safe for them, right? As long as they, you know, adapt and become, you know, citizens of that country, and not just through paperwork, but through actual work and ethics and action. The problem is when people abuse that, unfortunately, is when people just flood with not having that refugee status of actually being in trouble or actually being in danger or actually needing help. That's the problem, isn't it?
The left has lost her mind. It's all of a sudden the ones who enforce the law, the bad guys, the one who break the law, the victims. I'll say it again. We are prioritizing public safety threats. These are the worst of the worst walking around your communities.
So as the greatest army in the world begins securing its own nation's border, nobody is shocked at the result. Nobody except the two groups who benefited the most from America's open border and never wanted it to close. And that would be gang members and progressive politicians, both of whom have benefited immensely from what has been described as an epidemic of modern slavery, masquerading as a humanitarian crisis where dangerous gangs and cartels get rich, trafficking people into America who go on to benefit corrupt political interests, who use them as pawns in a scheme to defraud our country while riling up voters against who they say is an evil president that hates immigrants but is somehow married to one. And with the US border seeing the lowest levels of immigration since Eisenhower was president, America's enemies are doing everything they can to reverse this new trend, while desperately trying to continue business as usual, with the cartels changing their smuggling tactics in an attempt to sneak their indentured prisoners into the country, where in sanctuary.
So before he goes on with this, I want to preface this by saying I don't want to talk politics. And when I say that, I don't want to be pointing fingers at who's to blame for this, right? I want to concentrate and really focus down on the issue here with the border. We can get into all the other policies on another day, what Biden's done, what Obama's done, what Trump's done, all these other things about, you know, this whole lumber situation with Trump or whatever Biden did in his term, whatever. I don't really care about that, right? Let's really focus down on the border and what the hell is going on down there. Because you can kind of compare it to some instance of what's going on with the British border with these boats coming over, where it's happening so quick and so often that the rest of the population that's trying to just figure out what's going on doesn't really understand it. And it's very easy to just get angry, right? It's very, very easy to just get angry and not be objective, which is what we're going to try and be on this channel right now, which is always hard because we've obviously all got opinions, right? When you see this imagery of thousands and thousands and thousands of people pouring over the border, with the seeking the status of refugee, right? If a person came up to me and they were like, look, Luke, I want to be in the country because I know I'm going to have a better life for myself. I'll be like, okay, well, you can't seek refugee because of that. You've got to seek refugee because you're in danger or you need it. Otherwise, you're going to be hurt in some way, right? Going over just to have a better life for yourself, I don't think is a credible way of seeking refuge, or at least I don't think that's what defines a refugee. But then you see thousands and thousands and thousands of people pouring over the border, or these boats coming over, and there's no women and children in these images. Or maybe the news media doesn't specifically show them images so that it can rattle us up. I don't know the truth on that, right? We can't really trust you can't trust the BBC anymore. You can't trust Sky News anymore. You can't trust Fox News. You can't trust CNN. You can't trust any news source anymore. It's really difficult to have an unbiased perspective. And so when you see this imagery and it just seems like thousands and thousands of fighting fit young men coming over, you can't help but see people get rattled about it. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating because there are people who are seeking refugee who genuinely need it, and they get wiped off because of everyone else. Does that make sense? And that's hard to watch.
Sanctuary cities like New York, backwards local laws continue opening up new asylum shelters as our progressive leaders take credit for resisting President Trump. Which brings us to the real reason securing the border is so important. Not doing it just allows the enemies of America to continue destroying it while vulnerable people continue to be trafficked and exploited. Which doesn't just happen in sanctuary cities that harbor gang members and criminals. Oh no, this exploitation, which operates on an industrial scale, starts the second these gangs cross our border.
Yeah, you have to remember there are people who financially benefit from moving people and trafficking people across that border. Cartel members and probably a lot of people in the US benefit financially as well. That's not a good sign. That is not good. Now, I get that you can have there's a big argument right now about there's a lot of illegal workers who do a lot of work in the US, right? They're the people who are picking certain vegetables and stuff like that, or looking after livestock, and it's cheap labor and it's going to cause a massive shortage of workers. I've seen that argument quite a lot, but at the same time, I don't agree that there should be a place in the US where they need to pay someone so little that it's illegals that they're getting in to do it. Every place should have a standard of good living. So if you have a job that's simple where you're going to a farm and you're helping them, I don't know, I was down in Yuma, Arizona. I was in Yuma, Arizona a couple years back for the winter, and I spent a good couple months there, and you would see these fields and fields and fields with either stuff like romaine lettuce or lemon orchards like crazy, and there would be loads of people picking it. And you could presume, or let's just pretend, because it might not be the truth, let's pretend that half of that group of people are illegals, right? Let's just pretend, because I don't know the figures, and I don't know if any of them are illegal, so I don't want to give them any sort of status, right? But let's just, for a fictional idea, pretend that half of them are illegals. The reason why some people hire these illegals is because it's cheap labor. But that's not fair, because they're supposed to be coming to this country as refugees to give themselves a better living. So they're just getting shit wage again. Whereas in truth, if the economy was boosted to a standard where you would make good money picking these vegetables, there'd be more jobs for everyone that would want to do it. Does that make sense?
This video we wrote along with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. They were specifically targeting minibuses and small vans. One man that they got off one of those vans said he paid $8,000 to get smuggled into the country.
What?
$8,000. That's what smugglers in generic-looking vans earn carting people around our country. People who in many cases wind up in sanctuary cities, where they're held out as victims to fuel America's hostile progressive power base, which secretly has no plans to personally employ or house the very people stuck in the humanitarian disaster it's created. And
yeah, so don't let people who are incredibly progressive argue that they want these people over it, because again, there's no like end game. Once they're in, then what do we do? What do we do? At the same time, let's not go to the complete opposite side and say that no one's welcome, because that's not a good way to look either, because we do need, the US and the UK needs immigration to function as a working society, right? And it needs to have that refugee status if someone really needs it. So let's not swing the complete opposite way, but there needs to be a middle ground. Otherwise, you're going to get these like humanitarian places that are just full of immigrants that have no idea what to do with themselves, that came over here to have a better life, but are just stuck in these camps, not knowing what to do.
That disaster has empowered and enriched gangs and criminals who are now too strong for even the Mexican government to deal with.
Wow.
And as you're about to see, the U.S. military could soon find itself inside Mexico, tracking them down.
Those troopers will be joining the already 9,200 troops here on the border that have been deployed under President Trump since he has taken office. Those troopers will be included from the 4th Infantry Division and 2nd Stryker Brigade, and will focus on
4th Infantry Division and 2nd Stryker Brigade. What's that? Is that part of the army? Let me Google that real quick, because obviously that's more my expertise. 2nd Stryker Brigade. Let me Google it real quick. Department of Homeland Security. It just says soldiers, but what are they part of? What are they actually part of? United States Army. So it is the Army. Okay.
sealing key points along the southern border. These troopers will also be equipped with 20-ton Stryker combat vehicles, and these.
Okay, so over 12,000 troops are at the border, and these are not just any troops. They're ready for what looks like a counterinsurgency mission, driving around in these mobile Stryker infantry carrier vehicles, which have machine guns and 40mm grenade launchers. Now, it's important to understand these vehicles aren't tanks. They're fast, personnel-carrying offensive weapons, which will help our troops rapidly respond to any threat along any part of the border as soon as...
So it does make me wonder, what are their tactics here? Like, what is the actual tactics? They've got the personnel and they've got the equipment to deal with counterinsurgency, but the truth is, are they going to be moving across into Mexico to take out some of these cartel members, or are they just going to concentrate on preventing people from coming in and arresting the people that are helping them come in at the border? Does that make sense? It would be very interesting to see what the tactics are and what they plan on doing here.
As it arises. And if you think that's overkill, just look at who these vehicles and these troops are at the border to stop.
Cartel operatives have reportedly
Jesus.
had to move labs to other parts of the country or temporarily stop production. Other cartel members are becoming more afraid of being arrested. One person telling the New York Times, "You can't be calm, you can't even sleep because you..."
Good.
Okay. Do we really want the guys that we just saw on the news right here to be sleeping peacefully at night with all of their weapons and all of their evil plans? Of course not.
Yeah, I was going to say, are they saying this to get empathy? Because they're human traffickers. That's what they are.
But these people have been sleeping soundly and making piles of money for decades, and nothing's been done about it. That's how they were able to afford all of this military-grade equipment you see them carrying. And they aren't using all of those weapons to care for the immigrants that they are helping bring into the country, that's for sure. Their weapons, their ordnance, all of that is used to enslave and indenture these people, and this has been going on for so long that these groups are now so powerful, there's very little the Mexican government can do to stop them.
And these additional forces and troops will be primarily stationed on the Arizona border. This move comes as Hex
That might be down near Yuma where I was, actually. It might be down there somewhere.
is warning Mexican officials that failure to curb collusion between the country's government and cartels could result in the U.S. military taking action, according to the Wall Street Journal.
So the reason our military is headed to the border is because there's another military down there already, a military which is in collusion in many ways with the Mexican government.
The thing is it in collusion with the Mexican government, or do they just have so much power that the Mexican government is too scared to do anything about it? There are two different things there. Because if it is the alternative where the Mexican government are too scared to do anything about it, and then the US is putting sanctions on it, it does make me wonder, how effective is that going to actually be? Would there not be some sort of better deal that can be made where Mexico allows the US to come in to manage these groups in some sort of coalition or some sort of collaboration with the Mexican government. I feel like it's not as simple as what it sounds. It's not as simple as these are so big, therefore the Mexican government are working with them to blah, blah, blah. I think it's more that there's so much money and so much power involved that the Mexican government probably doesn't feel strong enough to look after itself. That's the direction I probably think it's going in.
Itself. And this alleged collusion with a foreign government makes this look like a hostile state-sponsored force. And even though I've got nothing against Mexico, it's hard to see them as our friend or our border partner when they're postured up like this and have been for quite some time. And to Mexico's credit, they are starting to do things like put troops along the border to help secure it every time the topic of tariffs comes up. But apparently the 10,000 troops they did send to the border last month haven't been enough, which is why our troops could soon be sent into Mexico to combat these cartels with the help of special forces.
It's insane that Mexico puts troops on the border to stop people from leaving. Like, you never hear of that unless it's North Korea, do you? It's always preventing people from coming into your country. But that's insane. We're going to get special forces out there. We got some sort of CQB set up here for them to train.
The US is also relying on an elite tactical unit for...
I don't know if I agree with that movement they just did there. Coming from around the corner, taking a wide angle. You've got no one facing down this way in the corridor down here. And they're all concentrating on this door here. So unless they've been told to just solely concentrate on that door... Plus, also, I'd be getting a bit closer here. I wouldn't be giving too much room here to go all the way around.
Targeted operations. News Nation gained exclusive access to Border Patrol's elite force trained to track and capture high-risk cartel operatives, also known as BORTAC.
So, listen, these people are probably professionals, right? Like, yes, I was in the Royal Marines, but I was in the Royal Marines back from 2008 to 2012, and tactics have changed quite drastically, and they change all the time. But it does make me wonder. I mean, look at the position in this room here. They went in very smoothly, which was nice. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. But they weren't doing the regular CQB maneuvers. And so it does make me wonder if these personnel have different unique SOPs to deal with this type of threat, maybe.
These elite troops storming houses, that's what's going to start happening in Mexico, if need be, to get these cartel members and to stop them from running their operations. And it's important to remember that the victims of these cartels, they're women, children, and other individuals who are essentially being used as money mules.
Yeah.
These individuals are being sent across to America by these cartels. They report being kidnapped. They report being photographed and monitored by these gang members. This is a sophisticated operation. And the reason that's done is to make sure that anybody that is in the care of the cartel pays their bills after they get across the border. They know exactly who these people are. And if they do end up making their way to a sanctuary city like New York, if they didn't have the money to pay when they crossed, you better believe that some awful job or 2 or 3 awful jobs will be found for these people to illegally work to pay off what they owe these gang members.
Yeah, that's not good. And that just goes back to what I was saying about like what you would see in these places in like humor and stuff where there was so many people and it makes you wonder like how are they, I mean, even like when you're looking in upstate in the New England area, like there's so many farms. It does make you wonder how they're able to pick everything with all these people and what the wages are on, because farms don't make enough money, right? But then you've got other places, back staff of kitchens in restaurants, and it's all over the place, isn't it? It's all over the place. And so it does make you wonder how this is all working, because it is working. Because all right, let me go back to when I was an immigrant and I was on a green card. Every time I got a job, every single time, I had to show the green card, and my green card, right, had to show that I was eligible to work, because not all green cards allow that, or at least not all visas allow that. So my green card, I had to provide it and give all that information up front. And so not only is it weird that these illegals are able to work, but people should be penalized if they're hiring people that don't show that documentation correctly. Does that make sense? So if I went to a restaurant and I was like, I'm an immigrant, can I work? And they didn't ask for that documentation, they should be getting in trouble for that. Shouldn't they? Because that's not on.
These are traffickers they caught in the United States.
David 2604. If you want to bring them back to my car, we can start getting their shoelaces and all that off. Yep. So he crossed. How much did he pay a month ago when he crossed? $8,000 for him? Okay. He came across for free.
Okay, this guy right here in the white hoodie, this is one of the traffickers because he came across for free, and his friend here in the black jacket, this guy paid $8,000.
$8,000. You're not coming over to the country for a better life when you've got $8,000 to be able to move across borders. That's insane money. That's one person. And there's thousands of people coming. This must be a $1 billion industry for these cartels. They must be making billions.
That's insane. And then as police go through their stuff, these wrapped up bags, there's actually money in here. They found $100,000 in this generic looking white van. And the scary thing about this is that the guy who came in for free, he didn't just come in because he wants to live in America and pursue the American dream. No, he came in to monitor the person that he's trafficking and all the money that they've got. He's part of a business operation.
Wow.
He probably crosses the border multiple times a month. And when we think of these Mexican cartels, we think of a heavily armed operation, yes, but one that stays predominantly in Mexico. But here you've got people that are apprehended in America who are part of these organizations. We don't want people like this in our country. What they're doing here is wholly incompatible with American values. They're exploiting people and they're tracking them and they're enslaving them in this criminal underworld that lurks beneath the surface of what people see every day when they live their lives here. And this
It's heartbreaking to see, innit? Because there are people who genuinely need the help, who genuinely are coming over to the US or the UK because they really need it. They really need it. And they get even more exploited by these criminal underground businesses that are just horrendous.
This is why workplace enforcement type raids are so important. That's where many victims of these cartels are discovered, working away for years to pay off what they owe. These people.
That's the thing. We can't punish the illegals for doing this. It has to be. They have to go to the root cause, which is the cartels. It's them that are exploiting this. The people who are being said, hey, if you can go live in America and make more money if you pay these people over here $8,000. Like, if I had a kid, I'd probably be like, you know, I've got a shit life right now and it's constantly horrendous living around here. I could pay this guy $8,000 and go live in America with my family and take care of him, and my kids will grow up to have a better life and a safer life. For them, that's a no-brainer. So instead of going after these immigrants, let's go after the cartels. And absolutely nip it in the bud from where it originates, where the business and the money's coming from.
Don't have a choice. Their lives are on the line if they don't pay their bills. And the employers that are taking these people, they're doing it to save money. So they get exploited again because they don't benefit from any of the workplace protections we have in this country.
Wow.
And when you see how easily these cartels have been able to get people into the country, your head is going to spin.
Attempting to use a ladder. That one had hooks on the top. That's
Look,
to get
he's
up
got
and
a
over
ladder.
the wall.
This
But their
guy's just
strategy
walking
was no
towards
match
the
for the
wall with a
manpower on
ladder.
the ground and in the air. And the show of force really seems to be working too, because those numbers there, the 2,700 in a single day down to about 60. And Border Patrol says that migrants are actually turning back on their own because there's such a deterrence on the U.S. side. But that also means the cartel isn't making its money.
These guys were using medieval technology to scale walls, and they've been making $13 billion a year with ladders. That's how easy.
$13 billion a year? That's how much it is? $13 billion?
This has been for them. But you heard it right.
Maybe it said it earlier in the video and I didn't catch it, but $13 billion is insane per year.
And they've been making $13 billion a year with ladders. That's how easy this has been for them. But you heard it right here. People are starting to turn around. They're realizing, hey, it's not a good idea to put myself in the hands of criminals if those criminals are just going to get stopped and apprehended before they even take my entire life savings and get me into the country. And this new trend of people turning around and heading home, this goes completely against what we've been told about our border and about this crisis from the very beginning. We've been told that people are fleeing extreme poverty and war zones and all kinds of things that are terrible, but
legit refugees, the people who really, really need the help, like I said earlier in the video, these people genuinely need the help, and people are trafficking them, manipulating them. Other people are coming into the country who don't need it, who are well off, who are exploiting the refugee status so that these people, these families that genuinely need the help, are just washed in with the rest of these illegals. Do you know what I mean? That's not how it should work, and that is detrimental to everyone.
a little bit of increased border security is enough to have them say, well, you know, we'll just head home. That shows that there's something else going on here. Perhaps people that have $8,000 to turn over to cartel members that might not even be worth anything if they get caught aren't as bad off as we've been told. This chart right here shows how the Venezuelan crime rate has just absolutely plummeted because apparently many criminals are coming to America now. They're coming here because it's more profitable to be a criminal in this country than it is in the country they were from. So they're doing it for economic reasons. And as you're about to see, the worst part about all of this is that it's all been entirely preventable.
Yeah, so what's interesting, let's show you here where the wall ends. This is what's been exploited by the criminal cartel for years now. People were quite...
The wall just stops? What? That makes no sense, does it?
Running right through this gap and right in front of our cameras, but as you can see, there's this vehicle barrier all the way up this ridge. Chris, let's go up this hill here and show them.
Wow.
So this is to stop vehicles, ATVs, any kind of SUV, you know, motorcycle, anything.
This is crazy. Look at how much open space there is right there.
Yeah.
Go right around the wall and literally just get into the country. That's insane. And then after people get into the country, the way...
Look at that. Look at that. It's unreal, isn't it? It's absolutely unreal.
The rules used to work was that they would get paroled and be able to stay here and then decide if they're going to apply for asylum or to figure out some legal pathway to potentially remaining in America. But as it turns out, this parole loophole, which affects 500,000 people, might soon be closed. Roughly 530,000 migrants entered the U.S. under the Biden administration program that allowed foreign nationals with sponsors living in the country to work and stay here for up to 2 years. Apparently, hundreds of people in this sponsorship program all used the same physical address as if they were flying here and had a sponsor who was at the same location as the sponsor for 99 other people. And that reveals an underbelly to this crisis that is very, very disturbing because people without a sponsor, they were able to get one somehow, and they were the same sponsor that sponsored hundreds of others.
You have to remember as well, these are just people. I'm not talking about the criminals and the human traffickers and all that. It's the people who genuinely are struggling and who come over to genuinely have a safer family, like have their family to be in a safer space and make a good living. Like, these people are exploited. They're just people. They're just people. They don't want to be in the circumstance they're in, and that's why they're trying to do something about it. But these underground criminals that are exploiting these people is just soul destroying, isn't it? It's absolutely soul destroying.
Entire crisis has just been a front for the worst criminals on our planet to make money off others, while the politicians defending open borders act like none of this is going on. In fact, they say it's wrong for any type of crackdown on these criminal organizations to take place. And they're now taking matters into their own hands to stand up to and stop ICE.
These posters that you're looking at on your screen right now have been spotted in several neighborhoods. Now, they contain photos, names, and phone numbers of ICE agents.
Holy shit. So they're doxing the ICE agents? Oh my God. As a military member who knows how important it is when you're in the military to not show your personal information or show yourself really in many places, that's terrifying, that is.
Activists are putting targets on the backs of our law enforcement as they shield MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and other vicious gangs that traffic women.
You've got to be in denial of reality to support this type of activism. I mean, these are the worst of the worst criminals, and they're all over the place, and they're working against the interests of the very people that these activists claim to truly care about. And that's what's so shocking about this whole debate on illegal immigration. You've got people who somehow believe that folks paying $8,000 ransoms to thugs driving vans are so poverty-stricken they don't have any money whatsoever and have...
That's the thing, like I literally said earlier, like they've got $8,000 to come into the country. Like, they're not... I haven't got a spare $8,000. So how are they able to do that and then come into the country and be like, oh, well, I need to make a better living for myself? You know, it looks like they're already doing pretty damn well. But then there's the other families who are exploited for coming into the country with no money, and then they have to work it off and send the money back to these cartels. It's not right. I don't know how someone can live their life knowing that they're exploiting people like that and be able to sleep at night. Like, it's just insane, isn't it?
nowhere to live other than in a New York City asylum shelter. And while many of these same individuals are returning to countries that are now safer than they were just a few years ago, you've got people in America who have no idea what's going on. But they hate President Trump so much that they have accepted the premise that we as a country are doing something immoral by turning these people around and sending them into the clutches of gang members and criminals, when that's exactly where they are right now in America.
No, I think it's a bit different than that. I think what's happened in America, and it's so obvious to see, is that you have to be Republican or Democrat. You have to be one or the other. Because if you're not one, then each side will think that you're on the other side, right? And the problem with that is you're not allowed to be like, I disagree with this thing, but I like this thing that this person does. I disagree with this thing, but I like this thing that this person does. You're not allowed to have multiple opinions, because as soon, like if I was in a room full of progressive people and I was like, I want secure borders, they would be like, oh my God, he's a Republican. When the truth is, a lot of my views are probably quite progressive. But if I sat in a room full of Republicans and I was like, I want, higher wages for workers, they'd be like, oh my God, he's a socialist. And it's like, no, in America, you're not allowed to have varied opinions. It has to be one side or the other. That's it. You are allowed, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, you're allowed to be a Democrat and want secure borders. You're allowed to be a Republican and want equal pay for everyone, right? You're allowed these things. But the society that we live in now prevents you from being able to express true individualism in your varied opinions. In Europe, it's not as bad right now. Like, I can go and speak to my friend. Like, I've got a good friend of mine who is more on the right than anything else, but he'll agree with a lot of stuff on the left. Like, that is normal in the rest of the world. But in America, you cannot do that anymore. You're one or the other. You're one of them or you're against them. It's as simple as that. And what happens is ideas come along. So you could be a Democrat. You could be super progressive, right? And you could be like, oh my God, the border's really bad. But because all the other Democrats are saying, no, we want to let these immigrants in, you have to agree. Same with being a Republican. If you were a Republican and you aligned with all of the different ideas, but maybe you didn't like, I don't know, the fact, gun rights, yeah? You could be like, I'm against people having guns or something like that. Then all of a sudden, everyone on the right says, whoa, you can't, like, you have to agree with everything on each side. Otherwise, you're not one of them. And that is incredibly toxic, and it creates a massive divide. Massive.
Got a security detail. The left has lost their mind. It's all of a sudden the ones who enforce the law, the bad guys, the one who break the law, the victims. We're not going to let them slow us down. We're not going to be bullied. We're not going to be intimidated. What we're going to do in these cities, we'll double the manpower. We'll flood those neighborhoods with DEA, ATF, FBI, and ICE.
So we've got a political party in this country now which has decided that everything good is evil and everything evil is good. That's extremely dangerous. And these are people who are now advocating actively on behalf of criminals. Not just the cartels who enslave people, but also the gangs like Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, who are prevalent in many sanctuary cities and prey upon and hurt the very immigrant communities these politicians say they exist to advocate for. But there's no advocacy for the working class neighborhoods in New York City flooded with gang members. And there's no advocacy for the people trapped working dead-end jobs, 2 or maybe even 3 of them, to pay back massive debts to these cartels and gang members. They're essentially being enslaved to support criminal enterprises. What do you think about this? Are troops at the border a good thing? Are these
of course it is
going to make everybody safer? Or are the activists right? Is this a bad thing for America? Should we reopen the border? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Great video by, what was his name again? Cash Jordan. Again, great video. I think it's really interesting to touch on this subject. I think it's really hard, like I said, to have a varied opinion in America, unfortunately. I think the majority of people in America are good people, and they want the best for the country. It's as simple as that. It just so happens that there's a political system right now and a social system where you have to align with one side or the other, and it's incredibly toxic. You can agree and having all these troops on the border to secure the border, you can think that's a great thing, while also disagree that, I don't know, what's Trump done recently? The whole tariff thing. You can also disagree with them tariffs. You're allowed to have varied opinions. Ultimately, there are good people trying to make a difference, And there are bad people exploiting immigrants and people who need help. People exploiting women and children, and that is not okay. It's a heartbreaking discussion, but it's a true discussion that needs to be had. I'd love to know your opinion down in the comment section down below. And again, be nice. These comment sections on these videos are always really toxic. Be nice. We can be constructive and nice and not be pointing fingers. I know there's going to be the comments where it's like, oh, it's the left have done this. Oh, the right have done this. I'm not interested in that shit. I'm interested in people who have logical reasoning. All right. Link down below to the original video. Please go out, check that video out. It was a really good video. Check out the channel as well. Check out the Kickstarter. Become a backer. Let's get the next generation outside more. Let's get this drink into the hands of more people so that we can get profits and send kids to forest schools, help kids learn about bushcraft, survival techniques, all this other stuff. I think it would be absolutely magical. Link down below to the Kickstarter, and also check out Chug, 10% off. Link down below. Other than that, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.